Welcome to Fulci Metal Jacket, where we curate and celebrate the kinds of films that lurk and loiter on the fringes of mainstream cinema. So Weapons is directed by Zach Cregger, and this one's now in theatres. So the premise of this film is that one night, 17 third graders mysteriously get up out of their beds at exactly 2:17am, run off into the night, and they're not seen again. So a month later, law enforcement still aren't any closer to solving the mystery. They really don't have any clues. And the onus of guilt is understandably directed at the teacher of the missing third grade class and also at the one kid who was left behind. Now that's about all I knew going into this movie, and to reveal too much more would be a disservice to what might be the best horror film of 2025. So I'll try and avoid any other pertinent plot points while I talk about this one. So the best way to describe Weapons is really that it's a dark fairy tale. It has a kind of dark dreamlike quality or nightmare quality. Everything about the film, even the most mundane events, feel a little off and surreal. Even people going to the store and filling up gas and so on and so forth. And there are a number of bona fide dream sequences in the film that are normally quite jarring in a movie, but in this case they kind of effortlessly weave in and out with the rest of the narrative, which is cool. And the whole thing is deliberately and effectively disorienting. So really cool atmosphere with this one. And the movie opens up with a really creepy prologue from a narrator that establishes the self-contained world of this dark fairy tale and kind of gets us up to speed. So the prologue almost feels like the Pied Piper of Hamelin meets an old Robert Stack episode of Unsolved Mysteries. So after the setup's established, it kind of eases into a non-linear Pulp Fiction style plot structure that skips back and forward as the story unfolds and we learn about what actually happened. So this one also has a great authentic 70s feeling. It's inspired by the soundtrack and the way it's shot and just a whole 70s vibe, even though it does appear to be set in contemporary times, but that works to make the whole thing feel a little off as well, which is great. And Weapons throws us quite a few curveballs. At first I suspected it was one kind of movie, and then it kind of slow burned its way into something else entirely. There's a lot of social commentary in this one about trauma, and especially community trauma. So the vanishing kids, of course, are like a obvious metaphor for school shootings, and the kid that's left behind is an even more obvious metaphor for school shooters. He's sort of bullied and alienated. And it also feels a lot like a post-COVID lockdown PTSD parable. So most people in the movie are defeated and dead inside, just like people in real life for the most part these days. And not to mention the whole loneliness epidemic, which this one also seems to touch upon as well. So Weapons may be the most original and impressive horror film of 2025. The cast of this one's great. It often feels like a bit of an independent art house film because the characters and performances are more fleshed out and three-dimensional than you'd expect. Probably the standout performance for me was the guy that plays the junkie. He's incredibly authentic with his erratic behaviour and life decisions, and they felt all too real to anyone who's spent any time around these kind of people, whether around family or acquaintances or friends. And this is one of those films where you really do become fully immersed in the world that's been carefully curated for you by the filmmakers. And as I said, Weapons has a great little true crime mixed with dark fairy tale sort of vibe that really works and really clicks. It kind of feels like the documentary Paradise Lost about the West Memphis 3 meets Suspiria from Dario Argento. That's the best way to describe it tonally. The opening scenes in particular are quite effective, as is the use of doorbell cameras that really add a lot of dread and atmosphere and authenticity. And as I mentioned, it does feel quite inspired by Dario Argento and Suspiria while still dancing to the beat of its own drum. I reckon Weapons would in fact make a great double bill with Dario Argento's Suspiria. They both have that great dreamlike dark fairy tale atmosphere. Now the ending of this one really does come out of left field, and it really ends things on a bit of a high, albeit an ambiguous high, while still being a bit of a Debbie Downer. And if you are watching this one at home down the track, it had also matched quite nicely with some meatloaf and a nice tall glass of fully fluoridated water, just for a nice little suburbs meal. great suburban cuisine for a great little dark suburban fairy tale. And what else can I say about this one? Well, to say any more would be saying too much, I guess, but I will say that this might be my pick for the best film of 2025 so far. And I highly encourage you to go and check it out in theatres if you can, or if you're seeing this a bit later on a streaming service, or especially physical media. Thanks for joining me if you're still here at this point, here at Fulci Metal Jacket. And if you did enjoy this content and you'd like to find out more, please be sure to like, share and subscribe, and I do hope to see you next time.